All right, we're live, Jack.
Hello, this is Jack Spillane and welcome to the New Bedford Light Chat. The chat is our video series where we interview the local newsmakers of the day, people of interest on the South Coast. And today my guest is Mary Rapoza, the longtime Director of Parks, Recreations and Beaches in the city of New Bedford. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Jack. Nice to be here.
Great to have you. I've long been an admirer of the work you do in the city, so it's great to have you on. I'm going to give just a little bit of biographical information for those who may not know. Mary has been the Director of Parks and Recreation since 2013 in New Bedford. She's a graduate of UMass Dartmouth. She has studied landscape design at Harvard and has done landscape design in the private sector, the commercial sector, and public sectors. Under her leadership, New Bedford has opened a series of new parks: the Captain Jack Peterson Dog Park, Noah's Place, the playground for challenged kids out on Pope's Island, the new bowling green at Hazelwood Park, and soon to be opened, the Abolition Row Park in downtown New Bedford. In addition to that, anybody who knows the Parks and Recreation program in the city of New Bedford knows that they do a bunch of programs year round, and some of and the Full Steam Ahead program for education. So I'm sure Mary will fill us in with other ones later. I got the idea for talking to Mary when I had recently written a column about what I felt was the need to upgrade Dias Field, longtime youth league baseball field in the city that had some extra park-like amenities, a basketball court, a tots playground, some walking paths. And unfortunately, as popularity of youth baseball has declined, the city has decided to install a full-length, the city's first regulation-size soccer field at Dias Field. And I took that opportunity to propose that the city maybe do some upgrades to the playground and basketball courts, the landscaping and fencing at the field. And I thought, Mary, you could talk about Dias Field and what's going on up there.
Yeah, sure. I'd love to. So about 3 years ago, the Little League that had been there for many, many years reached out to us and told us that they were starting to struggle, and with enrollment primarily. And then last year they came to us and they handed in their keys and they said they were done. So as unfortunate as that is, it did open up a great possibility for us, because since I've been here, we've been trying to find a spot to install a regulation soccer field. You know, we have a huge soccer community here in the city and no regulation soccer field. So we took a look at the property, and the 2 diamonds that abut Mount Pleasant Street are sufficiently large enough to create a regulation soccer field. So what our plan is to convert those 2 diamonds into that soccer field, and that will still leave us 2 diamonds at the Dias Field. One of them will be a Little League diamond, and the other is the refurbished adult softball diamond that we did several years ago. We do, as part of the plan for the soccer field, we're going to be bringing in more trees, more landscaping. We're going to be creating a picnic area. There'll be a scoreboard. Our long-term plan is to put lights on that field. We don't have the funding for that in place yet, but that is definitely something we're going to be looking into. And there is a concession stand there, so the restrooms will definitely be ready when the soccer field is ready. And it's where our optimistic plan is to have soccer being played on that field before the end of the year next year.
So this is a field where the travel leagues, which I guess are very popular, will be able to come to. And in the past, they have not had a regulation size field, but they could come to.
Yeah, so one of the things, we held a public meeting last fall as we were starting to just think through the idea of converting those diamonds to a soccer field. And we had terrific attendance, and we had quite a few of the local soccer leagues, both children's, youth, and adult leagues, show up to that meeting. And what we heard from them was, they all have travel teams, and they travel around the region, and they go to these great facilities in other communities like Taunton and Fall River and lots of other places. And then when it's their turn to host, they can't even host on a regulation field. And so it's been a real struggle for them, and reflects poorly, I think, on a city that is such a soccer community. So we're really excited about being able to bring this amenity to our parks.
I was amazed as I researched the story on Dyers Field. I drove around to some of the smaller soccer fields, Camara Field, Morton Avenue Field, and Renwick Field. And on a given night, every field had somebody practicing on it. And that was not the case with the baseball leagues. There were some baseball leagues that fields were being practiced on. So is soccer increasing as baseball becomes a little less popular?
Seems to be that way, yes. And you're right. So one of the reasons that we felt confident about, converting those 2 diamonds to a soccer field is that, as you say, we have diamonds, like for instance at Bedford Park, that often don't have any use. So we knew we had more than sufficient number of diamonds. What we don't have a sufficient number of is soccer fields, because we struggle. We issue the field permits for the leagues and teams that want access to our diamonds in our fields. And every year we struggle trying to put together a calendar that works for our soccer leagues, because there's just a big demand for it. And even aside from the times when the soccer fields are being permitted by, formally by leagues, there's always guys out there, and girls as well, kicking a ball around. It's a very, very popular sport in the city.
So when I wrote this column, I think, Mary, I must be a frustrated urban planner, because I always have something to say about what the city should be doing here or the city should be doing there. I think last fall I was even giving you guys a hard time about the squirrels chewing through the wires in the Christmas lights at Custom House Square Park, which, living downtown, I personally like a lot. But during the recent Ward 3 special election, Ward 3 has been described as sort of the in-between ward in the city, where it doesn't really have sort of the central geographical identity that some of the areas have. And some of the parents that I interviewed complained about there not being parks nearby. There were parks they could drive to, but some of them want to walk to them. And so when I saw Dyers Field and the way that the Franco-American Square has been upgraded with sidewalks, it occurred to me that this could really be a more focal point for the ward with better landscaping and maybe better amenities. And when I talked to you, it seemed there was a problem with the Tots Field, which you guys had already thought of, but finding funding for it was not going to be easy because of the lack of a sidewalk.
Correct. Yeah. So we took the playground structure out a couple of years ago because it was deficient, and it was our intention at that time to replace it. Unfortunately, we could not do that because there was not an ADA access to that playground, and you have to provide ADA access to any amenities that you put in a public space. So we, and the problem was that there was no sidewalk on Van Buren. So we didn't have anything to link into with a walkway to the playground. So we have been looking at that. Since you and I spoke, I've been speaking with other city departments, encouraging them to see if we can't just move that forward a little bit more quickly, so that we can, as we move forward with the Dyers Field soccer field, really create a much better park with more amenities in it. So folks are looking at that to see how we can get that sidewalk in sooner rather than later, so that we can go in and put a playground in there. Because you're right, and it's something that we've identified since I've been here, is that there is a recreational deficit in that neighborhood, and that's something we're aware of, and we're we've been struggling with. We're an old industrial city, so finding available green space is not, it's not very easy. We have to find space that's been abandoned or converted from brownfield. So it's having the opportunity to recreate a green space is something that's really encouraging and not often the case. So the city does belong to the 10-minute walk to parks, which is a Trust for Public Land initiative. It's a national initiative. And we rate very well. 90% of our residents, I think it's a little higher than 90% of our residents, are within 10 minutes walk of a park. And the one area that is not true is exactly what you said. It's in the Dyersfield neighborhood. And there's a lot of industrial sites there. And so it's been a little bit tricky trying to meet the recreational needs of that community.
Well, it's great to hear that you have some plans. I know you talked about, and by the way, anybody who doesn't know, ADA is Americans with Disabilities Act, which requires now that if you are going to do something like a tots playground, any kind of recreational facility, really, that you have to have access for everyone, and that's why you would need a sidewalk next to the entrance of that playground, which is off one of the side streets of Dyersfield, not off of Mount Pleasant, where I'm not sure there's even a sidewalk there either. But I know this. I walked up to Van Buren, and I know there's not one there. So again, because I was just in this Ward 3 race, and another part of Ward 3, which is the area in Upper Rockdale Avenue toward the Bayberry Apartments, people up there also complained, and they actually suggested that the field at Carter Brooks, where there's a lot of field, would be a good place for a playground, even though it's technically over the Ward 5 border. There's not anything up near that upper Rockdale Bayberry Apartments neighborhood. Is there a park there that I don't know of, or is there any talk about Carter Brooks?
So I know Carter Brooks has a lot of green space. Other than that, because that's a school department property. I'm not aware of any, improvements to that site.
Okay, so would it be the school department that had to put a playground in there, not the park?
That's correct.
Well, you're both the city of New Bedford. Can the schools and the parks department work together on that? Is that possible?
We work together quite often. They generally manage their own properties though, so I can certainly reach out to them, and they often do reach out when they're doing playground planning, but I have not heard of anything.
Yeah, because I mean, it does seem that there are a number of school facilities. I think of the soccer field up at Lincoln School in the North End that I don't see being used that much. And then I drive by Riverside, and there's 4 or 5 different groups playing on one soccer field. So I guess like I make a living second guessing everyone. So I'll just throw that question out about Carter Brooks, because the parents in that neighborhood did bring it up to me. So tell us about your philosophy of playgrounds in general, Mary, and what, I know New Bedford is a city of great parks and great playgrounds, but I think there's always room for improvement. So tell us about your philosophy.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're blessed with is we're blessed with a legacy of some really great parks. So back when the park movement started in the late 1800s, New Bedford's leaders decided that they wanted to set some really great green space aside for parkland. And so Brooklawn, Buttonwood, and Hazelwood were set aside so that each section of the city would have a major park. And so we're really lucky, because if they hadn't done that, we might be in the position where we didn't have any big spaces to work with. So, we've got that great legacy of parks. And then, I think we're all very conscious of making sure that, kids and families, everyone has access to a park that they can walk to, because we know, and more folks are showing us that this is the case, but we know that being outdoors, having, the ability to run around and being green space and under trees is really healthy for people, not just physically, but also for their mental health. And we also, the other thing about public spaces is that public spaces are places where people come together and having community. And that is so important to ensuring that we have a well-functioning democratic system in our country. People need to be able to get together and talk to each other and know, who else is in their community and what their thoughts are. And so public spaces just serve so many really important roles in our society.
Yeah, and I know that great foresight that New Bedford's leaders had in the late 19th, early 20th century to build those 3 parks was great. But I do think New Bedford is a little different in that just in my 25 years here, it has opened 2, I would argue, first-rate parks at Fort Tabor and Riverside. Those are not just little neighborhood playgrounds. Those are full-scale community gathering grounds that really have just added to the city's quality.
Oh, they really have, and both waterfront. So, I mean, how amazing is that to be able to get access to waterfront? And, when the leaders were thinking about a park system back at the end of the 1800s and early 1900s, one of the things that they were very conscious of is at that time, so much commerce was still coming in on the river. And so riverfront was not anything they were willing to devote to park space. So for us to be able to now access riverfront for park space is really, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
So I'm hoping Dyer's Field can do sort of the same thing for some of the inland people who
Yeah.
don't live next to the water in New Bedford. Mary, I promised that we would talk about programming at Parks, Recreation, and Beaches for the summer. So why don't you start about what you're excited
Okay.
about this summer?
Yeah, so we're going to be kicking off our summer food program. This is a really important program for the city. We know that many of our families and kids experience food insecurity when school is out. And so every year since the 60s, we've been offering the free summer food program. So we do that in parks throughout the city. And we're there Monday through Friday at many of the parks from 11 to 2, offering free lunches to anyone 18 years of age and younger. And we staff that with local youth, many of them right in their own neighborhoods. They're working in the parks in their neighborhoods. And they're also, in addition to the free food, they're offering recreational activities. So, it's a great thing for kids to come out and be with other kids and meet some role models from their neighborhood and get a free lunch. We're going to be kicking that program off. We're doing lunch and dinner. We're doing lunch. The lunch kickoff is Monday, June 26th from 11 to 2. And this year it's going to be at Hazelwood Park. And at that, we have lots of vendors. We have all kinds of activities. And we usually get a really terrific turnout of folks, families coming out for that because it's just so much fun. And then our dinner kickoff is going to be at Monty's Park the following day on Tuesday, June 27th, and that's from 4 to 7. And we do a dinner program at Monty's, Riverside, and this year we're adding the Andre McCoy Rec Center over here on Hillman Street. So we'll be offering dinners at 3 sites on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 4 to 7. And that's the same, it's the free meals plus the activities. Last year we kicked off our Rec and Relaxation van, which is a van full of all kinds of activities and free food. And that van goes to other sites, other smaller parks and sites throughout the city on a rotating basis. And anyone who wants more information about what that schedule looks like can go to our social media site, which is NB Parks, Recreation, and Beaches, and you can track the schedules there on social media. The other program that's long running.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
I wonder if I can just.
Sure,
I'm a supporter of the food program, both for during school days and during the summer. There's so much food insecurity that we read about and that is prevalent nowadays as wages have not kept up with inflation and all. But just to play devil's advocate a little bit in my journalistic role, some people who are philosophically against government providing a lot of programs might say, well, why why do you have to feed children in the summertime? I mean, can't their parents make a sandwich for them or something? What would be your response to that?
You know, Jack, when I first started doing this program, I literally got called. I got calls more than one from children calling in tears saying, when are you, because we did not have rain sites at the time. So if we had 2 or 3 rainy days in a row, we weren't out there feeding the kids for 2 or 3 days. And I had a kid call crying, when are you going to be back out there, because I haven't eaten in 2 days. I literally got that call.
Wow.
So yeah, you never want to hear that ever.
Oh,
No,
especially from a child, like,
not from, yeah. Yeah, so we changed that policy. We now do have rain sites. So we're in each of the, north, south, and west, um, whether rain or shine.
great to hear. I do have a question before we move on to other programs from Shakira. This is kind of an ambition question, but Shakira wants to know, will there ever be an outdoor or indoor roller skating area in New Bedford?
So we used to have a hockey rink at Riverside Park, and unfortunately it didn't get used, and it actually was taken apart. That I was already here, but the decision to do that predates me. So I was just overseeing a decision that had been made previously. So, we don't have anything planned at present, but it's certainly something we would consider. So what we would,
Was that ice skating or roller skating?
I think roller skating.
Okay.
So we would really just need to, 2 things. One, identify a location, and then get together with stakeholders and see what types of things they were looking for amenities there.
Yeah, I know that they put in the skateboarding facilities. I think both Riverside and Brookline have them, and I don't see them used that much. I don't know whether that fad
Yeah,
has passed or.
no, it's because this, and interestingly, we are going to be putting a new skate park at Brookline Park. And we had our first design meeting last night at Brookline, and we had an excellent turnout. And we're working with Spone Ranch, who is really highly regarded national skate park design team. And so what I was told by the skateboard community is that the skate park at Brookline is a usable park, but it just was in such disrepair that you get injured using it. And then the skate park at Riverside Park was never really designed for skateboards. And so you'll often see kids on bikes or rollerblades at Riverside, but you won't ever see skateboards because you just can't skate it with a board, is what I've been told.
Where I used to see them was that in that skateboard park underneath 195.
So the skaters built that. That's a do-it-yourself park, and they built that to meet the need for the fact that there was not a decent skate park in the city.
But is that, I mean, what about insurance and things?
Yeah,
like
so
that?
it's completely a pirate. That's a pirate.
It probably is state land, right? Under the one.
It is state land.
Yeah, interesting. So it's sort of a pirate, as you say, park. But it was popular for a while.
It is still. And from what I've been told is that folks even come from out of town to go skate there. But that was when they literally built themselves. Yeah.
So they knew what they needed. If you're a skateboard enthusiast, then you know what you want. And so I guess that's the important thing when you build these things, to have people who know what they need.
Absolutely.
On the design.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I interrupted you about the programming. So go ahead.
So the other program that's been running since the 60s that we manage is the Kennedy Summer Day program, and that's our camp-like experience for kids in the city. And both of those programs, the Summer Food and the Kennedy Summer Day program, we hear from folks who are grandparents bringing their grandchildren, say, "Oh, I used to come to this when I was a kid." That's how long these programs have been running in the city. And so the Kennedy Summer Day program is down at Fort Tabor, and it really is a camp-like experience. The kids get to go to the beach on a daily basis. There's the playground. They do the arts and crafts. They go on field trips. The older kids get out on kayaks and sailboats. It's a wonderful program. And one of the things that we're committed to with the Kennedy Summer Day program is, there's lots of camp opportunities out there. Well, many camp opportunities out there, but many of them are not affordable for a lot of our families. And so we always strive to keep our programming costs at a fraction of what everybody else is charging for their camp experiences, so that we're an alternative to those families that don't really have, the wherewithal to get their kids to some of these other camps that are offered locally.
Now, is this a first served, come first served, or what is the capacity, and how can people sign up for it?
So there is a registration process, and that registration is available at our website, which is NBPRB, so like New Bedford Parks, Recreation and Beaches, nbprb.com. And if you go there, you'll see the registration for the Kennedy Summer Day program. And actually all of our programs that we'll be discussing today you can register there at that website. And it is first come, first serve, and it's 4 2-week sessions, and we have capacity for 100 kids at each of those sessions.
Well, that's great. So if you're watching this, nbprb.com, you can sign up for that. There's 4 sessions, 2-week sessions, 100 kids per session. Can you take multiple sessions, or?
Oh yeah, some families come for the whole summer. Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right.
So yeah, so we've got at Brooklawn Park, we have the Ricketson Nature Center, and that's something we opened during COVID. We had anticipated to opening it in 2020. It just happened that we opened it that spring. But it's a building that's just over by Irvington Street, a little brick building. It's a WPA building. And for many years, it was the art therapy program in that building. But when the instructor there retired, that building became vacant. We decided to take it over and use it as another programming space. And so it's the Ricketson Nature Center, and it's open weekday afternoons from 3:30 to 5:30. And we often run special programs there. We've got great partnerships with Audubon and Trustees of Reservations, and they come out on a regular basis and do programs to enhance what we're doing there. We take the kids out on the Ricketson Nature Trail, which is a nature trail that we installed over there at Brooklawn in the wooded area. And later this month, just as an example, we're doing a moth and firefly night. So we'll actually have screen up to collect moths, identify what they are, and it's part of a national effort. And then we also are going to be learning a lot about fireflies.
Uh-huh. Now I have a question, and I know it's estate land, so it's not really your bailiwick, but I've always been, curious as to the Great Pine Swamp in the
Yeah.
part of the city, as to why there aren't some trails or better trails in there where you can really get out, and that's very, very rural. Is there any possibility of the city doing a joint nature thing with the state in the Great Pine Swamp?
Well, you should ask. We just met with them last week.
Yeah.
At the Acushnet Cedar Swamp Trail off of Shawmut.
The swamp, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so they don't really have a trail system there right now. There are a couple of boat launches on either side of Shawmut Ave there where they've got their signage. But what I've often hoped for, and just recently had the contact with DCR, which is the Department of Conservation and Recreation, the state department that manages that land, is to have a trail system that connects the Flora B. Purse trails on the other side of New Plainville Road with the trails in the Acushnet Cedar Swamp. So we've started that conversation, and hopefully we'll keep building momentum on that so that we could have a really nice trail system.
Yeah, it's a huge swath of land, and I think it could really be an addition for the city. Of course, it would have to be, it's everything like everything else. It's money, and you don't want it to get trashed or anything. But it sounds like it could be a wonderful opportunity if done right.
Yeah, I agree. And so we have started that conversation with them, and I'm very excited about that because that's something that I love the trails up there, and I've used them for years and years, like since the 70s. Yeah. And so it's been something that's been on the back burner. It's been trying to get DCR on board, but it looks like, we did have that meeting, so I'm pretty optimistic.
A question of Cedar Swamp. I don't know where I got Great Pine Swamp. So go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, so let's see. Well, of course, we have the nature trails. So we now have 3 nature trails that we manage. We have the Flora B. Purse up on New Plainville Road. The access to that is off Shawmut Ave South, as opposed to Shawmut Ave North, which is how you get to the Acushnet Cedar Swamp. And then we have the Rossi Matthew Trail behind Pulaski Park. And the trails they're very different. They're both really beautiful, but they have different amenities. Flora B. Purse has the head of the Pascomanzit River and a vernal pool. The Rossi Matthew Trail has vernal pools, and they have this great piece of part of the property where there's just glacial erratics everywhere. It's a really unique landscape and kind of fun to go check out. And then now we have the Ricketson Nature Trail at Brooklawn Park as well. And that's getting, because it's right in the city, that's getting a lot of use. So we're very excited about that.
I've been to both the Ricketson one and the one behind the Pulaski School, and they're both great. And it's not in the city, but they did a wonderful job with it. And that's the Acushnet Sawmill
Oh, yeah.
Reserve, which is right over the border into the town of Acushnet. It's very convenient if you live in the North End.
Yeah, that's another beautiful spot. It is. And, of course, we're really excited because it's beach season. So, we're going to be, we've got the lifeguards out there now on weekends, and we will be fully staffed 7 days a week beginning, not this weekend, but next weekend. We'll be switching to our 7-day-a-week coverage there at the beaches. And
you have any trouble getting lifeguards this year? We heard there was a lifeguard shortage.
We have not. We had a lifeguard shortage several years ago. And so what we did at that time was we collaborated with the swim coaches over at New Bedford High School. And so every year since then, they've been certifying their swim team and other kids at the school, but mostly the swim team, to be lifeguards. And so we have not had any problems because of that relationship. And I can't tell you how thrilled I am that relationship has been, ongoing, and it works really well. I think certainly for me, but I think for the youth as well, because, lifeguards it's a very competitive position, because as you say, there are lifeguard shortages everywhere else. And so, we offer competitive salary, and because these kids are on the same team, they work so well together, they know each other. It's been a real blessing for us.
Great.
Yeah. And so one of the things that the lifeguards do every year since I've started is they offer free swimming lessons at East Beach. And this year we're working with a new group called NB Swims, which was started by the physical education department at New Bedford Public Schools, to make sure that every kid in the city has access to a water safety program as well as swim lessons. So we're going to be expanding the number of swim lessons this year. We're planning to do a couple of mornings, a couple of evenings, and possibly a Saturday morning. And we're going to be meeting next week to confirm those days and times. But the registration for those classes will also be available at that nbprb.com. And those are all free swim lessons.
Great.
Yeah, we're all in on making sure that all of our kids know water safety and can, prevent a drowning. One of the things that
I have a question coming in. Where can people sign up for the swim lessons?
So at the same website, the nbprb.com, that's our registration platform. So any of our programs are on that site.
Okay.
So one of the things that NB Swims, they did get some funding for this summer as a pilot project. And so they are going to be offering swim instructor classes to the general public to see if we can get more folks certified to just teach, not to be lifeguards, but just to teach swimming. So those arrangements will be finalized shortly, and then there'll be a big push to see if we can get some folks interested in doing that program. And then the other exciting things happening down the beaches is this is the second year that we've got piping plovers nesting on East Beach.
Wow.
I know, right? I think it's been well over 100 years since piping plovers have nested at East Beach. So it speaks, I think, a lot to the improvements to the water quality down there in the peninsula.
Now you have to protect that kind of habitat. I know from being down the Cape. So
Yes.
is there a place where you can get close enough to see them without disturbing them?
So it is, just as you see at most beaches, it is staked and roped off. Um, and the Audubon is there nearly every single day, keeping an eye on them. We had 4 eggs and they've all hatched. And we
Wow.
anticipate they'll be fledged and, off doing other things before July 4th is what we anticipate. So it's
But,
very
but,
exciting. But yeah, you can see them. They're right on East Beach. You can go.
for anybody who doesn't know, they're just the most fascinating little birds. They're very small, and they have a little black on them with the white,
Yes. Yep.
and they're just very delicate. It's you just wonder how they survive, but they're fascinating to watch. They're very fast moving.
Yep. Yeah, and the little fledged plovers are just teeny, teeny. They're so cute, and they blend into the sand, but you can see them. So it's worth going down and checking it out.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got a couple of events coming up. We've got an open house at the Hazelwood Greens this Saturday at 10 o'clock. And so anyone who's interested, it's free and open to the public. There's going to be folks there teaching you how to play lawn bowling and how to play golf croquet. So we're hoping people will come out and take advantage of that. We've got those beautiful greens there. We've been told by folks from the national scene that they're calling them tournament grade greens and world-class greens. That's their words, not mine. So we're very excited about that. And we've got a croquet tournament scheduled for mid-July, and we've got a lawn bowling tournament scheduled for August. So the national folks and the regional folks are taking advantage of these great greens, but what we want local folks to take advantage of the beautiful greens we have there too. So we're hoping folks will come out and check it out and learn a new sport. And one of the reasons that we were so excited about renovating the greens is that both of those sports are so accessible. You literally, an 8-year-old and an 80-year-old and a 30-year-old can all play at the same time. And able, disabled, it's just both of them are very, very accessible. And so we thought it was just, a great opportunity to create a space for families to get together and just have some fun and enjoy sport.
I know when I was a kid, croquet was very popular at the public
Yes.
parks
Yeah.
in the North Shore and Bocce and all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're hoping folks will come out for that. And that's this Saturday, the 10th. And then we're going to be doing the ribbon cutting at Abolition Row Park. So that's very exciting. That's Friday, June 23rd at 1 o'clock. And so that space has really turned out to be quite a beautiful park. And it's a unique park for the city. It's not like any of our other parks. It's very different looking. And it tells a really amazing story about our city that a lot of folks don't know. So it's not only a great recreational space, but it's going to tell a terrific story about our city.
It's going to have a great sculpture of Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
all kinds of educational things there. From what I can see, it's a very exciting time because Frederick Douglass has long, in the opinion of a lot of people, been under-recognized in the city. One of the most famous people to ever come out of New Bedford. So.
Yeah, and the sculptor, Richard Blake, he's done other sculptures of Frederick Douglass nationally for sure. And one of the unique things about our sculpture, though, is we specifically wanted Frederick Douglass at the age that he lived in New Bedford as a young man before he became a famous statesman. So it's going to be a different take on Frederick Douglass, but it's going to be Frederick Douglass when he lived right there across the street from the park. So it's pretty exciting. And let's see what else. We have all kinds of, besides the Brooklawn Skate Park, we have all kinds of other park projects coming up. We're going to be putting in some nature-based stormwater management solutions at Brooklawn Park at the duck pond. So the duck pond that's existing is going to stay like it is, but what we're going to be doing is expanding to the northwest, where we always have wet puddles and it's been unusable. So we're going to create that. We're going to create a wetland there. So it's going to be a beautiful space. It's going to manage the stormwater from the park. It's going to build capacity for the pond. So there's just so many, pluses about that. And it's going to be really beautiful. We're going to be.
I have a question. Can Ray Gaia and West Beach help pass out info for swimming classes? That doesn't seem to, it'll be later in the summer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Once we get those days and times set, we can definitely do that. I think that's a wonderful idea.
Okay, all right.
Especially, so one of the things we will be doing with the swim lessons, and I should have mentioned this, is we've always held them at East Beach, but this year we're going to try to hold some at West Beach as well, because, we realize that folks that go to West Beach don't necessarily go to East Beach and vice versa. So we're that's one of the ways we're going to be expanding the swimming lessons this year, is by bringing them over to West Beach as well.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah, we're also working on some stormwater management improvements over at Buttonwood Pond. And, the erosion there by the pond and in the community center, I'm sure it's obvious to everybody that there's a big erosion problem there, because right now the stormwater just comes down across the diamond there and the lawn and down Buttonwood Street and Lake Street, and it all just washes out across the landscape there on either side of the community center. And it's it's impacting the recreational use, but it's also impacting the water quality of the pond. So that's been all designed. It's mostly funded. We anticipate having that fully funded shortly. And so that'll be the next big infrastructure project we're going to be working on.
So that should clean up Buttonwood Pond, make it, I know there's some problems with this. Is it silt or?
Yeah, so because of the erosion there, I mean, we're the city, we have to bring in crushed stone more than once a year there because of the washout on either side of that building. It's just the stormwater rushing across there has just been a big problem. And so yeah, so it'll cut down on all of the stormwater that's now flowing into the pond from uphill, and create a better system for infiltrating the water before it gets into the pond. And it'll also give us the opportunity to really enhance that recreational area, because at one time you could picnic there and you could sit by the pond, and now because of the erosion, it's just not a welcoming space at all.
Is this a big expensive project? Is it going to be ARPA or CDBG?
So it's just over $600,000, and we've got $327,000 of that committed from the Buzzards Bay watershed. It's a grant program. We currently have a grant pending with Southeast New England. Oh, for goodness sake, it's called SNEP, and they're also a grant agency that specifically deals with water quality and stormwater management. Right now, because of all the infrastructure grants that are out there from the federal government, there's lots of opportunity to get funding, especially around stormwater management. And so because we knew that money was coming, we thought this is a great opportunity for us to start moving some of these stormwater projects forward. So that's one of them that will definitely be moving forward. We're pretty confident we're going to get that other funding so that we can complete that project and start construction next spring. Another project that's...
Let me just ask, what about the Canada geese at Buttonwood? That's been a problem for a long time.
Oh boy.
What's the state of that?
Yeah, not just there, but also in parks throughout the city. So we, 2 years ago now, we had the USDA come in. So the Canada geese are migratory birds, so they're protected by the U.S. Migratory Act. So you have to work with the USDA, the U.S. Department of Agriculture. They are the agency that controls the Migratory Bird Act. So you can contract with them to come in and manage the geese. They contract with Mass Fish and Wildlife. So Mass Fish and Wildlife, 2 years ago now, came in and they do a whole number of things. In the spring, they addle the eggs, which means that they don't hatch. They use means to scare them off, to chase them away. And then in August, they cull them, because any bird that's there in August is not migrating. In August, they should be in Canada. So if they're still here, then they can cull those. And so there, we did put in a request for that service to happen again this year. It's in our budget request, so we'll know shortly if that's been approved or not. But yeah,
So
it is.
has it been successful? I mean, it's a shame because they're beautiful creatures, but they are kind of nasty, and when they come on great numbers, they just ruin the lawns of people who live there. And
You know,
is
you
it
know, it's
is it any under any better control? Or
so, I looked into that option because Roger Williams Park has been doing this for a number of years. And I was surprised when I went to Roger Williams Park to see that there were very few geese there. And so when I followed up with them, that's what I was told, is that they've been using for probably about a decade now. And, every so often, every few years, they have the USDA come back in, and over time it is effective. And you can see that by going to Roger Williams Park. You'll definitely notice that they have fewer geese.
okay.
And, it is really a problem. I mean, we were getting calls from folks that the basketball courts were fouled, that you can't put a blanket down on the lawn because you can't find a spot that's not fouled by the geese, so it is a big problem.
I have a pet issue I want to ask you about, not a literal pet, but I'm a tennis player, and I think I've talked to you a little bit about this. And I've had many great days playing both of the Buttonwood courts and at the new ones at the Jack Field Center. But I know that there's some plans because pickleball has gotten more popular. So could you tell us a little bit about what the plans for the various city parks are for tennis and pickleball?
Yes, so we do have funding, and that work will hopefully start soon. The Buttonwood tennis courts, there's two fenced-in areas, as you're aware, with 3 courts in each. So last time we had them refinished, we kept one enclosed area was dedicated to tennis. The other, we did a combination of tennis and pickleball lines on the courts. That's not what we're going to do this time. What we're going to do this time is we're going to keep one will be dedicated to tennis and the other will be dedicated to pickleball. And as pickleball has become more popular, that's really the best practice, is they're saying keep the sports separate, give them their own unique space. And so that's what we're going to be doing at Buttonwood. So we'll have dedicated tennis courts and dedicated pickleball courts at Buttonwood. At Hazelwood Park, we are going to be redoing those tennis courts as well. And at Hazelwood Park, those will be dedicated tennis courts. And then our next project will be dedicated pickleball courts at Brooklawn Park. And one of the other best practices for pickleball that communities are really stressing, and even the National Pickleball Association themselves will advise that best practices no pickleball courts within 400 feet of a residence. And so we really couldn't do pickleball at Hazelwood, so we're going to be doing all the pickleball courts up at Brooklawn.
Yeah, I heard some talk that they wanted some pickleball courts further away where the Toss playground was. I'm not advocating that one way or the other. I will say that as both a pickleball player and a tennis player, there's nothing that drives tennis players more crazy than pickleball lines on a tennis court, because you don't know, it's distracting to know where you're at.
Yeah, so that's what we're hearing for best practices. Give them their own dedicated spaces. It makes it easier for everybody and more enjoyable. Yeah. And so that's what we're going to be doing.
Before you go back to your list of things you want to talk about, Shakira is asking, does anyone know when the start date of the West Beach Pavilion renovations will start?
The West Beach bathhouse renovation. So we don't have any specific improvements at the pavilion, but the bathhouse, that is fully funded, and we're going to be basically gutting the bathhouse and completely redoing it. But that's not going to be able to happen until the September, because that will start after the season. So we're hoping to get all that construction done between September and May of next year.
Okay, so it's bathhouse, not pavilion. Does the pavilion need to be upgraded in any way? Or
we did an electrical upgrade there not too long ago. We put some lighting in. So I'm not aware of any other upgrades happening there at this time.
Okay. All right. Go back to your activities, Mary.
Okay, let's see. Oh, geez. So
we got about 10 minutes left. So
okay, so I'm going to be fast, but the Andre McCoy Recreation Center here on Hillman Street has really, since since COVID, we have not seen anywhere near the activity in that building that we're seeing now. It's just amazing how, it's just busy all the time, and we have so much
Wonderful building.
program. It is, and it's just so wonderful to see all the folks in there doing programming. And so we have things like Kempo Karate, we have fitness classes, a 12-week boot camp. We have, we're doing this great partnership with Antron Peoples, where he's coming in on Thursdays from 5 to 6 and doing social, emotional, and motivational speaking for 11 to 18-year-olds. So we're really excited about that program. He's bringing some great stuff there. We've got chair yoga. We've got art camp with the New Bedford Art Museum at the McCoy Rec Center. Pre-K to third grade basketball, pre-K to third grade football. And so now we're starting to get into a little bit into our summer programming, because in the summer we do try to bring some of that programming out to the parks. We'll have tennis again this year for youth, and there's just so much going on. Folks really should go to our nbprb.com and take a look at all the programs that's available that they can sign up for, and many of them are free. That's we're the rec department, so we really do try to offer as many programs as possible for free, because one of the things that we're committed to is removing barriers for our residents to have the opportunity for recreation. So we many of our programs are grant funded. Sometimes we work with agencies who have grant funding who want to offer the programming at our venues, and we partner with them. And even when there is a fee involved, we're not looking to recoup salaries or anything like that. We're covering just program costs, and that's how we set our fee structure.
Is it you guys who run the music programs like Reggae on the Beach, or is that tourism?
So Reggae on West Beach that's an independent program. They have their own organizers, but they do have a city sponsor. So yeah, they're a city sponsored event, but there's two organizers, and
I see.
they organize that program.
Okay, very good.
Yeah. Yep. So and those partnerships are terrific too. So Marty Lipman's bringing the music series back to Custom House Square this year. So there'll be music in the evenings at Custom House Square, and there's just the symphony orchestra is going to be bringing music into the parks again. They started that during COVID and just thought it was very successful and effective at reaching new audiences. And so they'll be doing that again. And, there's just so many great opportunities and partnerships.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Anything we haven't covered?
I don't think so. I guess if anyone has any questions, they can reach out to the department. Our phone number is 508-961-3015, or you can contact us at info.prb@newbedford-ma.com. And, we're always interested in talking to folks who have ideas, who, want to bring additional programming, anything. We're a public agency. We serve the residents of the city of New Bedford, and it's the parks we manage and the buildings we manage. They're not ours. They belong, to the city. They're resident owned. They're public, and so we're always open to discussing with city residents.
Well, I'll close by just since you said make your suggestions, I'll make mine. I'll put in a plug for a nice harpoon fence around the new Dias Field. Maybe we should research who Mr. Dias was and have some nice signage and some background on the history of the park, and make it a real centerpiece for that section of Ward 3 that really doesn't have a park. So I'll just put that plug in to wrap up.
Thanks. And the history of the parks is something that I'm very dedicated to, and I would love to work with somebody who would be interested in doing exactly what you said, like who was Mr. Dias? Let's find out and do a little bio and get it up on the website. Yeah,
I have some queries into Spinner in the library, people working on it for me. When I wrote that column, I did get one gentleman who said, great column, but who was Mr. Dias? And nobody I've talked to around the city knows. So maybe somebody will watch this in the next few days will be able to tell us who who Mr. Dias was. I'm sure he was a great person. There is a plaque for a guy who ran the league, the youth baseball league, great at
Yes.
New Bedford Youth Baseball League, but I didn't see anything up there for Mr. Dias. So I'd like to see a nice fence, good gateways. I'd like to see the former baseball building, more of a community building. I have great plans for Dias Field.
Great.
So,
So do we.
our guest has been Mary Rapoza, the Director of Parks, Recreation, and Beaches in the city of New Bedford. When you watch this, if you have further questions, as she said, you can call the number. The number again is
508-961-3015.
and you can go on their website, nbprb.com,
Yes.
and find out about their programming for the summer.
Yep.
Thanks very much for being our guest, Mary, on the chat, and thanks for taking all my questions.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you.
Bye.